Hi, everybody.
No interruption this time from me, except for just now. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve.
Oh, puppy dog.
Oh, look, John's showing us his doggy. Hi, doggy. What's the doggy's name again, John?
Wesley.
Wesley. Hi, Wesley.
Black, the Dread Pirate.
Roberts. I just watched that a couple of, maybe a week or so ago.
Yeah.
Probably the world's most quotable movie.
Oh my God, yes.
I can recite almost the whole movie for you. I'll resist not doing that, but yeah, especially with me and my brothers, we can go through at least many of the most famous scenes and just just recite it. But it was just like that's the perfect family movie or fantasy movie because the adults can love all these deconstruction and stuff like that. That what it was. It was absolutely a fantasy movie, but it was also a deconstruction fantasy movie because we had that framing device of we're the child that Fred Savage listening to Peter Falk as a grandfather. Who doesn't want Peter Falk as their grandfather or their relative and stuff like that?
Well, not if he grabs my cheek, you know.
Yeah. or he does the Columbo thing where he never lets you fall asleep. He keeps coming back in the room and going, "There's just one more thing." Grandpa, please let me. I'm so tired. Yeah, just one question.
It's a 400-page novel, Grandpa. You can space it out over more than one night.
Yeah, and he reads him that entire book. How about just a chapter, Gramps? I'm really sick.
I'm very tired.
I just want to sleep. I took some NyQuil. I'm good.
Is it a kissing book?
Oh, there's nothing but kissing for the whole thing, kid. You're gonna love it.
Is that why there's Fabio on the cover?
It's called the best erotic fiction 1987. Here, check it out.
Yeah. Hey, geek. Dumb question. I got triggered on this because of all the quoting because I find this eminently quotable. Are you aware of the transcribed adventures of Nick Danger? Fire Sign Theater. You see, I
know Fire Sign Theater. Yeah.
He had another one, but he vanished mysteriously along with the servants. They were very attached to each other. Where are the wrists and ankles?
Yeah, I know you've mentioned it before, and I'm familiar with Fire Sign Theater. I love Fire Sign Theater. They were a major influence on Mystery Science Theater. Yeah. But I don't think I've seen.
There's some of it out there on YouTube. I mean. I have it. Once again, to date myself, I have it on vinyl.
Ooh. A much lower sound.
How can you be in two places at once when you're not anywhere at all?
I still have my copy. They did a movie, J-Men Forever.
Yes, I did see that movie.
I have a copy of it around here somewhere. Yeah,
it's they also do so Zachariah.
Maybe,
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I have to study up on my
something in the head that associates that, but I'm not certain.
Yeah, but J-Man Forever. Actually, what one of my best friends, Christopher, the guy that I co-host Pierre the Chef with, he introduced me to that, and he said, if you like Mystery Science, you're gonna love this. And I thought it was just hysterical when I first saw it because it's made from clips of old movie serials that then they redub the dialogue.
Touch your head.
Just hilarious. Yeah. The Caped Madman. The Caped Madman, and he throws an engine at somebody, and the guy, he's like, "Oh, you lunatic! You threw an engine at me! You caved in my skull! What the hell is wrong with you?"
What the hell is wrong with him? He caves in his skull, and he can still talk.
Yeah, that's his final words.
Okay,
his final words.
It's weird that you phrase that the guy you co-host Pierre the Chef with, as opposed to a guy.
How dare you? How dare you? Look, you know what? That's Pierre's fault. If he had shown up for a show, I might have thought to include him.
I heard about this Pierre guy, but I never seen him and stuff like that. I'm wondering. I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy if he shows up on time.
Does he have his own channel? You never liked to it.
Pierre is a chef.
We got the idea. Yeah, something about the header on the video.
Pierre is a chef. Yeah. Actually, it's funny. We were Christopher came up with a bit for one of our episodes several months ago, where the reason Pierre wasn't there was that that he he had been scammed into going to Europe to meet Gordon Ramsay, and it turned out that it was like a kidnapping, and he was held hostage. And Christopher writes this note in French. And I don't think he speaks French. It's like Google translated French. And then he holds it up to the camera for a second. And if you freeze frame it, you can read the note that he's written. And it is hilarious. He's like Pierre saying, and Gordon Ramsay wasn't even there. He held captive for days. And his complaint is, and Gordon Ramsay wasn't even there.
That almost sounds like you 12 years to slave Pierre.
Oh.
Hey, Matthew.
He got out.
Your sound looks great. It sounds great, Matthew, by the way.
That's good. Thank you.
He didn't have to stay for 12 years. They released him.
So you 12 days to slave.
He was 12 days a slave, yeah.
God.
Did he negotiate the slave contract then that way? Well, it's better that he doesn't get like that worry-free contract. That's a reference to Sorry to Bother You.
I still haven't seen that.
Oh, great movie!
I need to see that too. I haven't seen that yet.
Saw it twice already, and still a great movie the second time around.
Nice.
So many people need to see that. So good.
Yeah, I really want to see it. Did anybody?
It's best to know nothing about the movie as you go in. If you've seen the trailer, that's it. You shouldn't. No one else should tell you anything else.
Has anybody seen this? Just with the 12 Years a Slave thing reminded me of the Key and Peele sketch where Key and Peele show up at the Civil War reenactment. They go to the camp of the Confederate reenactors and they're in costume as slaves.
I heard about that. I haven't seen it.
Oh my god!
Just that setup sounds funny.
Oh my god! They're like, we're just trying to be authentic, And they're like talking in like in stereotypical like slave English, and the white Confederate guys are like, no, they go.
We just trying to be authentic, man.
Yeah, it is entertaining when sometimes I'll see like an early America picture, and finally you'll get one that doesn't tone down the racism.
Oh yeah.
Actually, there was a couple of video games like that too, and I remember, okay, they got black people, Chinese, but okay, who else have they missed? I come around the corner, and there's a sign on the wall that says "No Irish beyond this point," and I'm like, there we go.
Oh wow. Historical authenticity.
Like, yeah,
yeah, because I guess people forget Irish people didn't always count as white.
Yeah,
or Italians, or
Polish. When you read like the history of racial politics, it's like basically white has always been defined as whoever gets most of the stuff and whoever has all the power, and people who are left out. It doesn't even matter like what their skin
white was
color
effectively Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah, that's what that's what I know of the original whiteness and stuff like that. The original whites and stuff like that. But now it's just like, hey, you Fuentes, you talk about like all the far right politics. Yeah, we can include you in.
Yeah, it's confusing.
But Jews have all the money and power. Why aren't they truly white?
That's the part that doesn't make sense. If Jews are the ones that are completely in control, why didn't they set up all the categories? And why aren't they like on top of the pyramid? It makes no sense.
yeah. We somehow managed to be racist against our own race. That's just
yeah. That's
it's that. Well, the funny thing is, so many talk about going back to original cultures. Half of the cultures that fall under the umbrella of white wouldn't have even had anything to do with each other.
No.
Pretty much, yeah.
And that's the blunt end of the stick. You don't need racism for condescension and conflict. All you need is just somebody who's different. That's it.
Yeah. Racism is just an incredibly common and pervasive form of.
It's easy. Yeah.
Well, it's the color line. Bada bing.
Yeah. I mean, even like within your own nationality or your own nation as well, you can just be like as prejudiced against like others. I'm sure we can take examples.
Well, and I think that's what happens. I mean, if the Richard Spencers of the world got their fucking white ethno state in a few decades, they would have picked out a particular group within that population, their pure white population, and they'd be hating them, you know, because that's all they have. You know, they have, it's us versus them, and well, oh no, your problems aren't your fault; it's their fault over there. So let's, you know. Yeah.
But they can have Florida. They can have Florida, apparently.
Well, it's your problems are their problems, but their problems are also their problems.
Yeah. Exactly.
We didn't have any problems until these people come around. I know, why are they here?
We didn't have any problems until we invaded these people's countries and kidnapped them and brought them to our countries.
Oh, funny thing, because before they invaded this country, they still had plenty of problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody noticed.
There's no way that there's a system that both disadvantages poor white people and minorities.
Oh my goodness!
Don't look at that! Don't look at that!
What was it? I think what Will Rogers said that as long as you can convince the poorest white man that he's better than a black man, is something like that. Like that's the whole that's the whole deal. I think it was Will Rogers, but I didn't get the wording exactly right.
It's either Will Rogers or LBJ. I think.
LBJ
might
said
have been LBJ. I'll bet you.
It's you convince the lowest white man that he's still better than a black man, and that's how you get his vote.
And then you get Trump.
Yeah.
But that actually worked because I was like debating against what turned out to be anarcho-capitalist. I did get to say to that ANCAP. ANCAPs are just big babies who don't want to pay taxes. He's smart.
And then you won the debate.
But then you just arguing against me and my views on socialism is like, listen, the homeless in America do they have a better life than the homeless in like Zimbabwe? Well, he always goes to an African country, which says something, I think. And so yeah, he seriously said, listen, the homeless in America have it better than the homeless in Zimbabwe. So don't complain about the system. Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I was having
Hi, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Well, the funny thing about like you said before, the people that are paranoid about Jews and stuff like that is if they're the master race, why aren't they in charge of shit?
Yeah. And if they are in charge of shit, why does bad shit keep happening to them?
Yeah. Well, just like something that Richard Coughlin pointed out a few years back, because obviously, these guys really they don't like miscegenation, the mixing of the races. And like their attitude is like, well, if a white person and a black person get together and have a baby, that the net effect is downward. So basically, he says, wouldn't that mean that white genes were weaker?
Nice.
That's what we're really afraid of. That's what we're really afraid
That is awesome.
Nice burn.
I was in biology class in my first year of college, and the biology teacher, who was from Nigeria, I think, was talking about the fact that a lot of blonde-haired and blue-eyed people have specific sets of, odd diseases that are slightly different from others. And a woman who was sitting at the front, who happened to be blonde and blue-eyed, was like, why? What is this? And she almost had like an accusatory sound to her voice. And he was like, oh, it's because recessive genes. She didn't even understand the fact that...
Actually, it's no more, one is stronger than the other, one is stronger than the other when you say yellow and blue make green.
Right.
Yeah. You mix them together, you get something different. So
you're saying that green is genetically inferior?
That's hilarious.
Well, here's something. Years ago, I was talking to a guy I worked with, and he grew up as a farmer, and he said, he didn't feel bigoted against other racial groups. He just felt they shouldn't mix because he was saying you don't mix your prize milk cow with your prize beef cow. And I said, well, Gordy, that may be the thing, but here's the thing. Look up the thoroughbred horse. Someone took their prize, draft horse and their prize running, speed horse, and made something that was better than both for running. And the endurance of the draft horse and the Arabian.
Yep.
And then he was like, "Ooh!" I broke his head.
Got your speed horse and my draft horse. You got your draft horse.
Not bad.
Or you view relationships as more than just a, genetic mix of things, and based on love and caring, as opposed to what the offspring might look like.
Anytime they'll try to say, like, oh, black people are inferior, and like, especially when they get on the IQ thing, I'm like, well, depending on which IQ test you prefer, I've never gotten lower than a 140, and I've gotten as high as 160. So I'm like, explain me, and then they're always like, oh, well, there's exceptions. I'm like, well, okay, that's your hope. And that's the thing I always get to them was like, well, what's your end game? Even if you could prove that there was some genetic component that somehow, black people and certain people were genetically less intelligent. But if you admit that there's exceptions, that means you still have to treat individuals as individuals because you don't know who you're encountering. So otherwise, because if you treat me like I've got a 94 IQ, you're vastly, you're hurting, you're doing me a disservice. So, and then, of course, they never have an answer for that.
Well, yeah, they do. It's shut up.
Well, exactly.
You're ruining everything.
Well, stop ruining a point.
I remember a few years back. Yeah, anyone remember Sardonic Skeptic, the Canadian YouTuber? So he seemed cool for a while until he revealed, what kind of person he really was. But when he went all, he was alt-right before the alt-right had a name. And he made he made this video going off about, black people are all on welfare and they don't contribute anything to society. And he just got a job and he was making $16 an hour. And wow, I'm really doing it. And I'm like, yeah, I made that in 1991. And I have a business and, I run a business. And he's like, no, you don't. You're lying. And I'm like, I can prove you I do. And he goes, I'll make a video and I'll prove it to you. And then he says, I won't watch it or care. I'm like, well, then you're literally saying like, I know there's evidence out there that proves me wrong, but I don't want to know about it because it feels
good. It's the equivalent of sticking your fingers in your ears and going, la, 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 I can't hear you.
Exactly. Well, it's just like the whole idea, since the Trump administration, they've been hiding evidence on climate change. It's like, so that to me an admission. Yes, it's real. You just don't want, it serves your purposes to pretend that it isn't.
Yeah, but Trump is not fascist, even though he's hiding information from the public.
Yeah, shall we mention that his CPA has now been given immunity, and when that guy spills the beans, fasten your seatbelt, boys and girls, because it is going to be one hell of a bumpy life.
I just love Chief Financial Officer has got the immunity, not the CPA.
Well, whatever. I mean, I didn't know exactly, but I mean, Wurzelberg or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
I mean,
like that.
He is the man from Afghanistan as it comes to that, man. He's the guy who knows where the bodies are buried.
I just love seeing how Trump's supporters, how increasingly naive they have to pretend to be to continue to support him. Where like every week, another close associate of his who played a huge role in his campaign or his foundation or his business is flipping on him or being indicted or pleading guilty to something. And it's like, so we have to believe that he was surrounded by criminals. And yet somehow he knew nothing about it, and he never took part in any of the criminal shit.
Well, he was trying to reform Steve.
It was the other people, Steve. It was not him. It was not him.
There was no collusion. It had nothing to do with me.
This is how we get Trump's people and Trump's campaign people or administration people to actually work for the U.S. We have to indict them or like make them guilty or give them immunity. That's the only way to get them to work.
And honestly,
then he actually tweeted flipping should be illegal.
Cooperating with law enforcement should be illegal.
Did he really?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, he did.
He said that.
He said it. He didn't just tweet it. He said it on television. I know all about this flipping stuff, and it's interesting because he said it almost should be illegal.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's ludicrous.
It should still be a little legal.
Well, look,
it should be a little bit legal for when he gets somebody to flip, in his favor.
Yeah.
Lawrence, it's weasel words from the Chief Weasel.
There you go.
Bada bing.
Just remember, he's out Nixoning Nixon.
Yes.
Yes.
And the scary thing is, he's doing it and not even breaking a sweat.
Well, that's the reason why John Oliver calls it stupid Watergate, because it's like Watergate, but with stupid people.
Well, all right, guys, we've got it. Stupid Gate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and think about this. In Watergate, people had to get caught breaking in someplace.
Yeah.
In this one, like, people just started looking into what they were doing. Like, there was no inciting incident. There was just like, oh, let's maybe check out some of the people that worked for his campaign. Oh shit.
Michael Flynn works for Russia. He's a Russian guy. Come on.
Like nobody even fucked up. They were just doing whatever they were doing.
I mean, shall we mention that the people in his cabinet, most of the people he's hired to work in the West Wing, read like a listing from Murderer's Row.
Yeah. Did you guys see John Oliver last week?
On trade?
Trade, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the trade one.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, and that just shows you how dumb Trump supporters. And you wonder, like, how do they do it? They don't understand anything. So they think the tariff is a tax on China or wherever. It's like no, it's a tax on importers,
right?
That will get passed on to American consumers. It doesn't. At best, it might cost some Chinese companies some sales at best,
right? Because it makes goods more expensive for people in this country to buy.
All it's doing is suppressing trade and making what trade there is going on more expensive. I mean, how stupid can you get?
It's a tax on Americans, not a tax on
China. Well, except for the companies that are exempted from it, which is more than likely enhancing the budget of certain definitely not corrupt presidents.
Yeah, he saves 20,000 jobs to lose 400,000 jobs. So
that was striking. I had not seen that statistic before, and that was
If you know where those jobs are, though, the Rust Belt, those battlegrounds.
Oh yeah.
That's why he's, I'll say this much: as much as I disagree with many of Hillary's, more vehement detractors, her biggest mistake was, as far as on the campaign side, was when she was in coal country, when she was in iron country, basically kind of gleefully like, oh, we're making these jobs go away, and it's like,
yeah, maybe tone that down.
You don't do that.
Maybe tone that down when you're in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So, now that could have been turned around. It could have been like, look, these jobs are going away because that's what the market's doing, and there's no government thing that's going to help you. However, we're the party that cares. We're the party that does compassionate things to help the people that lose their job find new jobs and so forth and so on. And
for sure, that should have been the focus. Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you and tell you your jobs are coming back.
Right.
Yeah, and that's when I had that conversation with my father. He said, well, the Democrats he's a Republican. He's like, well, you need to figure out why, the people rejected your message. And I'm like, okay, that's complicated. Yes, there are things like, okay, when Trump talked about infrastructure, we should got on board and we should push the issue on that.
Yeah.
But then I brought up his talking about the jobs, and I said, what we were saying was the more realistic, but nobody likes it. So what do we do?
Meanwhile, how much real action are we seeing about infrastructure and anything going on regarding infrastructure?
Exactly.
I don't see a damn thing.
No. Well, because he keeps trying to sneak his fucking border wall into everything.
Well, I mean, that's his idea of infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly.
Here's the sad part.
It's part of infrastructure, I guess.
I keep trying to tell the few right wingers that I actually still talk to, whenever they say that I should give them a chance and I'm not being fair and all that crap, I'm like, look, if he actually pushed a real comprehensive and meaningful infrastructure bill, I would be behind it, because I've been behind that forever. Yeah. So I would give him credit for it if he did it, because obviously we've not been able to do it in the last 30 years. So do that, motherfucker, and I'll go.
No. But remember, there was a couple things that Trump said that I would be behind. Like when he was at one point, he actually said, "I'm going to audit the military and cut wasteful spending." Never happened.
No.
Well, I mean,
the thing is, though, we're still talking about a guy who has been through 6 bankruptcies.
Yeah.
And this guy is going to balance the budget, and he's going to get other people to pay more money with the tariffs or whatever. Try that again, please.
Who knows more about bad finance than him?
Yeah.
I can't believe. But would that translate into anything useful to the American public?
Oh, yes, because all we have to do is not do what he's done before.
Oh, there you
Okay,
go.
good. Yes.
And we've been successful.
Yeah, which is right up there with expecting him to act presidential.
No, he's new presidential.
Yeah.
I am new presidential.
And you.
He's unprecedented.
Unprecedented.
This entire administration is unprecedented.
Actually, I would put it this way: he's not new. He's not new presidential. He's ew presidential.
Yeah, ew.
Yeah.
No, actually,
But
what happens is when he's finally kicked out of office, then he is unprecedented.
Yes. I would love for him to be unprecedented.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. A friend of mine said the other day. He goes, "As bad as things have gotten, he almost wishes that Thanos was real."
You know, Trump would be in the surviving half, though. That's our fucking luck.
Oh no! Yeah.
That's our fucking luck.
Trump
He would snap his fingers, and like you would look around, and, oh, I'm still here, and then like Pence crumbles to dust, but Trump is there. Like, God damn it!
Yeah.
That would still be an improvement.
Snap it again, Thanos. Come on, just snap that fucker again.
One more time.
I'll take my chances.
But I think one of my biggest concerns is people are going to think once Trump is gone, it'll be over and we don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
No, not a. I mean,
Oh God.
I mean, am I the only one who saw Pence as the poison pill to keep Trump in office?
Yeah.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah. A lot of people have made that argument. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
other than the wild, tweet stuff, who do you think is the architecture of all this shit? Because Trump doesn't know anything.
Well, as it comes to shit like the Johnson Amendment, defunding Planned Parenthood, all that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, that is Pence chapter and verse, literally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Pence is the one, as twisted and as atrocious as they are. Pence is the one who has principles, and Trump has no principles and has no beliefs and has no core at all. Pence has all that. It's just awful.
Exactly.
You realize this is two Republican presidents and with shadow presidents. So basically, because we know first we had Cheney was the real muscle behind the thing.
Wasn't Reagan a shadow president as well?
Was that?
Yeah.
Wasn't Reagan also a shadow president?
Definitely in the last few years.
maybe toward the end.
That's with 3 out of 4 now.
Yeah,
it's like HW. That's the only other one.
Do you think that like Cheney and Pence get together for coffee and they just trade stories about the ridiculous shit? They're like,
wouldn't you just love to be a fly on that wall?
This one time he couldn't even figure out how to open a door.
I was holding it.
I was on the other side holding the handle. I was like, watch this.
At least he could
Secret
pronounce
Service couldn't touch me.
president or terrorist.
Yeah. But well, I mean, part of it is I look at like some people call Trump a fluke, and I'm like, actually, he's kind of a culmination of everything that's gone on over the last few years.
It absolutely is.
Oh, absolutely. When you think about it, I mean, all the policy stuff he's been doing, these aren't things that Republicans, have been other than the tariffs. Everything else he's done is stuff that the Republicans have been talking about for ages.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's kind of like all the preachers who criticized Harold Camping, and some of them even laughing at him. I remember this one guy, was like, "Oh, this is so silly," he's predicting the day. And then listen, he's also an apocalyptic preacher. The only difference is that he didn't have the gall to like come up with a date. Like, oh, so you're Harold Camping minus the date, and you're laughing at Harold Camping.
Exactly. Yeah,
because you don't think it's going to happen next Tuesday, but you'll say real soon. Like,
you think it's happening. Well, because I used to watch TBN a lot as like a voyeur, and
condolences,
and all of them, like they're all like end times preachers.
Yeah,
they're all like, Jesus is coming soon. Like before you, and then they never give a date. They never say, August 28th. Like but they're like any day now. It could be any moment. So you better be ready. Okay.
Oh, who were my favorites? I forgot the guy's name, but his wife was Rexella.
Oh, Jack Van Impe.
Yes.
Jack Van Impe. And you know what? It's so cool. It's so weird that you mentioned him because I was what is that?
He sounds like a Disney villain.
I mentioned Jack Van Impe. I mentioned Jack Van Impe, and this demonic sound just starts. No, but he's still doing stuff. Him and Rexella are still doing their show, and he's like 90.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'm like, didn't you save your money or something? Like, why are you still doing this?
Well, dude, I must preach the word of the Lord. No one's gonna stop me until the Lord stops me.
Hey, Steve, why does his wife? The name of his wife sound like she's trying to like get a stole made of puppies or something? Rexella, yes.
I mean, who came up with Rexella?
Who names their child Rexella? What kind of a sadistic monster would name a little baby?
She looks like a Rexella.
She does. She grew into it. She grew into it.
Obviously,
exactly
they wanted
like
a boy that they could call Rex.
Oh, well, that's well, my stepmother. My father had remarried, and although he was never married to my mom, but the woman he married, that he was married till she died. Her name was V. Eddie, spelled V. Eddie. It looks like Betty to anyone who can read, but it was V. Eddie.
V. Eddie.
Because her parents were expecting a boy and they were going to name it Eddie, and they had a girl, so they feminized it by putting a V in the front.
Oh my God.
So her name was V. Eddie.
V. Eddie. That's a new one on me. I've never heard that.
Me either.
I thought I had it bad. My parents were, or my dad was this close to naming me Upton.
Oh God!
Upton.
My mom interceded and said, "You can't call him Upton." Because it was my great grandfather's middle name and my great grandfather's first name.
You cannot be named Upton unless you have like pinky rings.
Yeah.
And a top hat.
And the last name of Sinclair.
And hey, I have a top hat. I can be called Upton today, something like that.
Actually, Some Random Geek looks kind of Uptonish right now. I mean, that's a very. If you were playing a character named Upton, I'd be like, yeah, absolutely.
Hello, I am Upton. I am the cyberpunk robot captain of this ship and stuff like that. How are you doing?
I love that you would refer to yourself as the cyberpunk robot captain.
Well, Little Arno has messaged me, and she mentioned to me how I have a great hat and stuff like that, and I look like a steampunk cyborg.
You do. Also, doesn't the name Upton sound like you would refer to yourself in the third person?
Oh,
yeah.
Always.
Why not? It's okay for Upton to refer to themselves in Upton in past tenses.
It just made me think of like if there was like if Mr. Spock introduced himself to someone as, "Hello, I'm Spock from Star Trek." He wouldn't say that. It's me.
Upton believes that Upton is a perfectly fine name, and that Upton would feel weird using a pronoun.
There are no pronouns.
We Uptons don't use pronouns.
I don't know, Steve. If I ever met Tim Russ, I would be like, yeah, he played Tuvok on Voyager.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be bringing that up to him. I would say, "Hey, you're the We Ain't Found Shit guy from Spaceballs."
I'm sure he would love that.
Yes.
Oh, finally, someone who doesn't care about the Star Trek shit. God. I've been an actor for 30 years.
Just like if you ever meet Samuel L. Jackson and say, "Dude, you're the criminal, the holdup guy from Coming to America."
Exactly.
Yeah,
What's in your wallet?
Go to Harrison Ford and bring up American Graffiti.
There you go.
Better yet, bring up American Force and Force 10 from Navarone.
Yes.
Do you guys know if he was also the one that had the makeup on when Tuvix was a thing?
No, that was
one
a different
episode.
Actor. That was a different actor.
Okay, yeah. I remember that episode. Yeah, that was a weird episode.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was a different. I can't. And the actor who played Tuvix, I think, has been in other stuff, but I can't remember. I mean, he's not like that familiar. But you might have seen him in one or two other things. But yeah, it was a different guy.
The name?
John Brockman has some ambient noise in the background again. I think one of the noises is maybe his puppies playing with like a chew toy or something like that. Yeah, that's what I was guessing.
You know, I was thinking though, you think about Trump. I mean, basically, our president is a carnival barker.
No, he is the logical extension of P.T. Barnum's,
Sucker born every minute.
Sucker born every minute and two to take him, mixed with generous amounts of Dunning-Kruger.
Oh my God, yes. Well, it's David Letterman said right after Trump got elected, he said, when I was growing up, I was always told that anybody could become president. And now I'm realizing, oh my gosh, that's true.
It's true. And the hell of it is, I was saying that 16 years ago about W.
Oh, yeah, boy. Yeah.
But he was always the governor.
And the one lesson you take out of this is you never want to ask the question, how low can you go? Because the answer may not be what you expect.
It's always lower than you think.
Yeah.
I don't think W is actually a great example of that, due to the reasons he was made president had everything to do with connections and privilege.
Yeah. Oh, come on. What it had to do with was his last name and his family.
Making him president.
But that's connections. That is connections with the RNC and stuff like that. And because and who he knows and something like that. I knew Carl, that guy who was the political strategist. Yeah.
Well, the thing is, when Trump first announced his candidacy, I know a lot of people on the left side of the political fence laughed, and I didn't laugh because I learned during the 2004 campaign. I was a Wesley Clark supporter, and I realized how dirty and messed up the political thing is, and how you never know what's going to happen. Things that seem like a fait accompli turn out later not to be. And if you look at the 2016 election, everybody knew that Jeb was going to be the nominee, right? And he got nowhere. He got crushed. To the point, I mean, it was to that pathetic point where he was like, "Please clap," Oh,
yeah, I think it's because, and this sort of thing, I think it transfers across all different sorts of platforms. It happens in entertainment as well. It's like he had his moment. Jeb had his moment, and he didn't do anything with it. He just took it for granted. He thought, well, all I have to do is walk out on stage and be Jeb, and I'm the heir apparent, and that's it. And he didn't have anything.
Right.
They handed him the microphone and he had nothing to say. He was just like, well, everybody's voting for me, right? Well, and in comes Trump like a fucking bulldozer, just, and everybody's like, well, at least he's doing something.
It's amazing how many people vote. I remember a friend of mine who now hates Reagan, but at the time he was like, well, at least he's doing stuff. I'm like, yeah, but it's all stuff you think is destructive. He's like, well, yeah. It's like,
Yeah. I just finished reading It Can't Happen Here.
Some time ago, yeah.
Yeah, and I shot a video about it yesterday for Monday. But the one thing about that novel that he gets absolutely right, that is still applicable today, is he nails the apathy and the complacency of the American people. Because the complacency and the apathy of the people in the novel that allows the president in that book to take power is exactly the same as Trump. Where it's people who are just like, well, okay, he might be bad, but he's not going to be that bad. Or he says he's going to do all these things, but he's probably not going to do any of that stuff, Or the one that really hit home for me that made me feel called out was, oh yeah, come on, he's not going to win.
How many of us have said that?
He's not going to worry about it. This is a joke. Nobody's going to vote for him. I have more confidence in the people than that.
Oh boy! No. People.
I'm sure. Even Trump's kind of campaign people were like, we're not going to win, which is why they did all those deals with Russia.
They really did not think he was going to win. Well, that's the one reason why, at this point. And anytime I run into people who still try to hold the line that both sides are the same, I'm like,
no, not really.
Because only one party is trying to block people from voting. Only one party is trying to take away women's right to control their body. Only one is pissing in the on the environment at an accelerating rate. It's like yes, the left and the Democrats have troubles. But to say that they're either functionally or morally equivalent is just, that's
the word you're searching for is ludicrous.
Yeah.
I mean, Trey Croder had an awesome video about that recently. Liberal redneck.
Yeah.
Where he put out a political ad, what if far left wing Democrats actually were as open
Yep.
Far-right Republicans.
That was awesome.
That was great.
Well, I mean, I think the point that a lot of the people who make the argument that both sides are the same is that they're focusing so much on the fact that they're both part of the same system, and they just assume that because they're a part of the system that they're both equally bad. They sort of ignore the fact that policies and laws actually do make a difference.
Yes,
and they do matter. And you can criticize the system and say, well, we need to reform the system, but if a certain law or a certain policy is enacted, that still affects people's lives and it still matters. And if one side is advocating for humane, progressive policies and the other side is advocating for the opposite of that, I mean, clearly one side is preferable than the other.
Well, the other problem too, though, is that a lot of times I see where people, instead of looking at what each side is fighting for and fighting against, they'll look at, well, what the legislative record, which I understand that's fair to look at that to a point. But what they'll do is they'll say, okay, like Obama didn't get a single payer option, even though he talked about it. So therefore, he wasn't really for it. Not looking at the reality of our political
it was
system
never
and
going to happen.
how it functionally works. Like I still see, I got into an argument with somebody the other day that they're mad at they're not going to vote for the Democrats because they said the Democrats are doing nothing to get rid of to get Trump out of office. Why haven't they impeached him? I'm like, are you serious? Are you fucking serious? Do you not understand function? And that's the thing. It's not even a matter of like knowing backroom deal shit. It's just like they literally functionally do not know how our government functions. They
we weren't properly taught that in school or something like that. Some of us are not properly taught that in school, and so I'm thinking that's
but you know what? That's a bullshit excuse though, because we have the internet. We have literally connected.
But who wants to look up something that they don't know about?
Humanity is ever piled, collected.
What is lacking is motivation and engagement, and until you got that, forget about it.
Apathy and apoliticalness and stuff like that. Apoliticalness either because both sides are terrible, or apoliticalness because I don't care. That's why we have like this kind of like problem where I just watched like a omnibus like a video just recently where it's so important of who is the Senate Majority Leader and who is the like a Speaker of the House and stuff like that, because like Senate Majority Leader can block bills from even getting a vote and stuff like that, which is why it's so important to like vote for what letter is next to their name, D or R and stuff like that, because with the R's next to the senator's names, the Senate got a majority.
Right. But the thing is, how many people that complain about gerrymandering who don't vote in state elections? It's like, well, you can't do anything on the federal level to control the gerrymandering on the state level because
on the subject of gerrymandering, sorry, the Pennsylvania state legislature had an amendment in the progress that was like fiercely debated. It looked like there was going to be a lot of bipartisan support, but on like the last day, they added an amendment that would districtize the state Supreme Court at the same time, which was basically the poison pill to the point where the people who were pushing for the bill now had to oppose it. And of course, people are going to point that like, oh, now they're opposing their own bill, like not seeing how much has changed. The bill itself has changed.
Right. Now, thankfully, in Pennsylvania, that went up to the Supreme Court, and they had to go with the better drawing. So I was looking at that. It looks like even if all votes are equal as last time, Pennsylvania there'll be a five seat pickup for the Democrats. And in New Jersey, just thanks to retirements, there's going to be 3, maybe 4, depending on what happens in my district.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Kind of dead. The whole legislation is basically dead right now.
Yeah, but the thing is, if people don't vote in their state assemblies, they don't vote they don't even necessarily vote for governor in their state, and then they wonder why things are fucked up. It's like, some
state representatives go unopposed as well in some places, so there's also that problem too.
Some of these guys, they complain about that. It's like, well, you know what? If there's no one running, run.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what has happened in this cycle. I mean, look at the number of women who are running. It's gone nuts.
Yeah.
I think the Democratic National Committee says, like previous election to this one, they had like a handful of women. In this case, you've got like literally hundreds of women who want to run, and they're kicking ass and taking tickets.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that's the thing. I've thought about it before too, because especially when now, thankfully this time we actually have in my district we actually have a decent candidate, but the last 2 or 3 he had sacrificial lambs. So Leonard Lance was never challenged. Now he's actually challenged, and now it's a toss up because he's actually got somebody decent. But because and the thing is, you never know, because in some cases, there's not a lot of people voting for the crap candidate. It's just that no one's running against them.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is why more people should just be involved in governance, period, and understand of how much influence they can have or how much they could have. The reason why we have the kind of like the corruption or the chaos or whatever in the system we have now is because not enough people care or even know enough to know that how things works or what that can do to influence stuff like that.
And there's one good thing that's come out of Chris Christie here in New Jersey. Only one. But I said I've thought about here and there running for office, but I always felt, well, look, I'm fat and bombastic. What chances do I have? Well, apparently,
you could be the governor, man.
Fucking A.
If you're going to vote based on appearances, I mean, he's about as telegenic as a hole in the head, but he got in there twice.
I mean, there's another thing. I think a lot of people, like what Joe was saying a few minutes ago about people who say, well, I'm not, I don't like the Democrats and I'm not going to vote for them. I think we need to separate those two things, because there's many times that I don't like the Democrats either.
I can talk about
I can't, but I can't remember a time in my adult life where I've ever not liked them enough that I said I'm not voting.
I mean,
you can't.
I voted for Democrats all the time.
Yeah, there's and I was talking. I was talking to Dan Errol a couple months ago, not about the Democrats, but I think it was about either the ACLU or the Southern Poverty Law Center. I can't remember which one, and they had just released a statement that both of us kind of weren't comfortable with. We didn't like it. They were supporting someone that we thought they shouldn't support, and we both said, and Dan is way far left of me and is really, and I admire him for that, because he's like a firebrand. And he said, I completely disagree with this. I don't like what they did, but it's not enough for me to stop supporting them. The organization as a whole still does enough good that I'm going to stay behind them and just not, and be critical of this thing that they did.
Right.
And that's how I view the Democratic Party, is that, there's tons of stuff that the party does that absolutely infuriates me. But nothing so bad that I'm like, all right, I'm not a Democrat anymore. I'm not voting for them anymore, because
you do math.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because the alternative is horrifying.
Yeah.
Again, clearly better than the alternative.
We're literally talking about something that nobody likes to admit, and that is voting for the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
Right.
And at that, I'm sorry. I mean, yeah, the Democrats have done stuff that has drive me crazy. The whole business with that gating the time with Wall Street and all that.
Yeah.
Still, you look
neoliberals.
at that, and you look at Trump. And I look at Trump, and I have to strongly resist the urge to vomit.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes these people branching off from the Democratic Party or going off in all these little groups. What it really reminds me of sometimes is the joke in Monty Python on the Life of Brian, when he talks about the People's Front of Judea, the Judean People's Front. The People's Popular Front of Judea. It's
exactly.
They hate each other more than they hate the Romans. It's
there's some people that argue about that on the left. I'm an anarchist, and Tankies hate me, some MLs hate me, and stuff like that. And so, there's that sectarianism anyway. And I could say my opinions about liberals, but I'm here with you guys, and I'm so friends with you, Steve and Francis Christie. So I'm gonna I'm definitely gonna vote D on an election day. I didn't vote for the primaries, and I vote for a freedom Democratic Socialist or something like that. He didn't win though, because in Washington State we have a top two primary. Whoever gets the most votes in the top two could be Democrat. It's not usually how it happens, but it's whoever gets the top two goes on to the general and stuff like that. But with the first past the post and the two-party system as it is, well established as the Democrats and the Republicans are, that's why we don't got those multiple options and stuff like that. So we all agree that like there should be election reform of some kind. And where do we go after that? It's up for debate, of course. My problem is like the only people that have the power to change the system are the ones who like get into power with the system that we have. I mean, like in Canada, Justin Trudeau promised his people of Canada that he's going to do election reform. As far as I can tell from ThoughtSlime, he hasn't done that. Well, of course he hasn't done that. Why would he take away the thing that gave him power? So
that's why we need to infiltrate the system and overthrow it from within.
Exactly. And I'm an anarchist. That's why we need to overthrow it.
Because that is actually what that's what I'm trying to tell these people. Because that's what the Tea Party did. The Tea Party. It took them 15 years, but they had completely taken over the Republican Party.
Yes.
Not by.
Thank you, Koch brothers.
To picking up Hoysum and going home. They said, okay, well, we're just going to keep primarying people out until we get what we want. And that's what they did.
Dark Money. Yeah.
That's right.
That book is great. People read that book.
So I keep telling the far left, if you want a more liberal Democratic Party, make them so.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The turnout in primaries is typically 15%. 15% of the available electors. And so some of them have told me, well, because I guess 19 states have open primaries, the other 31 don't. Now
we had an open primary for definitely sure.
They'll tell me like, well, I don't like the idea that I have to register as a Democrat. I'm like, so your sensibilities about registering in a party is more important to you than your liberal values. I posit you don't actually have liberal values. You have liberal ideals and you like to be self-righteous. And you don't actually give a fuck about these things because you don't actually do the things necessary to make them happen.
Thank you. 2016 showed that. 2016 showed that 93 or 97% of Black women voted for Hillary. And they were mad about it. But they didn't want Trump.
And what you wind up with is the perfect being the enemy of the good. You know, this is a relative world. Nothing is perfect, nothing is absolute. You're dealing on a grayscale here, and you've got to recognize that side of the grayscale is way darker than maybe halfway up the grayscale, and it may not be pure white, but it isn't midnight black either.
Yeah,
which is why for me as an anarchist, I know that like I'm a revolutionarist, but for true change, you got to have a revolutionist and reformist, and you got to work together on what we can agree needs to be done in order to actually get the change. You need
precisely,
both.
And like you said, you got to work with what we have, just like you said before.
Right,
and then we kill all the rich people.
To paraphrase, I forget it was W or someone in his administration. Oh no, maybe it was what's his name? Rumsfeld. You go to the polls with the electors that you have, not the ones you want.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And hey, like we said before, there are actually a lot of like city councils or a lot of like smaller offices because in America, a Canadian said this, America votes for everything. So there's district attorneys, there's all these kind of like different positions. You can maybe find something that you can run for if you think you're good at it, and just be a politician yourself and get inside and see how it all is. You basically just like go to places and have meetings. So it's just like working for a non-for-profit organization or any other company in a way. So anyone can do it. Look, anyone can do it. We established that, haven't we?
Yeah, and it's amazing and heartbreaking how many problems could be not totally solved, but at least like seriously addressed if more people just showed up and voted in this country.
I mean, that's why there's never the problem of too much politics. There's always the problem of not enough politics.
Well, if people were allowed to vote, don't forget.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, there's voter suppression. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely.
Yes.
And part of the problem is you look at some of these polling places, the lines are like 3 hours long.
Which is why I like absentee ballots or something like that. Or did it froze me again? Probably did.
Well, here's the thing that I realize, and it's kind of bizarre and weird and counterintuitive, but the reason why the left has a hard time pushing a diverse agenda is because it's so diverse.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, the Republicans are diverse too. It's just that they care more about following the leader.
If you look at the base of the Republicans, it's very Christian and very white, and then it's on the extreme, very rich and very poor.
Yeah.
So it's easier to get them in lockstep, of course, because you lie. They lie to the poor and say you're going to be rich next week if you go with us. And whereas here,
that's a lot of capitalism.
And of course, they're racist as hell.
Think about, okay, all of us, to some degree, have been involved with various social justice movements, and look at how the intersection of some of those, how much friction that's caused, because we get into who's got it worse, women got it worse, or black people, or these people, or that people, gay.
This is why we need intersectionality.
Well, right. But real intersectionality, because there's a lot of people who say it and don't actually live it. But you're right. If we actually counted our numbers up and said, okay, well, let's take women. That's 51% of everybody off the bat. Then we throw in black males, because we already counted the black women already. And then we count. Then we count. Well, and that's another issue too. Sometimes within feminism, there's things, and then you count, all the gay people, so all the gay men, because we already counted all the women, and count all the trans people, and count the the Latinos and working class poor whites. That collectively is about 85% of everybody. If we actually could stop fighting ourselves over who's got it worse, and realize that we're because people both on left and right seem to occupy on this thing of like, there's a pie and I got to get my piece of the pie, and if somebody else gets that pie, I don't get pie. But it's bullshit, because if we actually make it work, because wealth's not a constant, if we actually work together and do the things we all know we need to do, the pie gets bigger and there's more pie for everybody.
Right.
Yeah, the world's best kept secret.
Yeah, there's not a finite amount of pie. there's an unbounded potential for pie.
The left promises infinite pie.
Yeah, that should be the slogan.
Wait, doesn't capitalism want infinite growth or something like that?
2020 Democratic nominees should say there's a potentially infinite amount of pie.
The pie is a lie.
Pie side economics.
Well, wait a minute. About it is that the right, capitalism does want infinite pie, but unfortunately, the right wing, while they worship capitalism, actually don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
They think
their economic policies, I think, demonstrate over the last 40 years.
That's right. They think the free market means no regulation, and it's not. That's not what the free market means at all. It means
there's no such thing as a free market.
Burdens. In fact, because monopoly and oligarchy are actually antithetical to capitalism.
They're the end result of capitalism.
Meanwhile, they try to sandbag people like us with crap like trickle down, which never worked, never can work, and never will work.
And it's more than a century old at this point.
Oh yeah,
and we have antitrust laws as well, so we can prevent mergers like with Fox Studios and Disney and stuff like that, or many other mergers that happened before. So there's not just 4 airline companies that run all the air traffic and stuff like that, but we don't enforce those laws.
The problem is it's getting to be that way. I mean, AT&T just tried to buy what, Time Warner? And I think, is that going through or isn't it? Because I haven't kept up with it.
I can't remember if Trump is happy or sad about it.
I'm trying to think whether I give a shit whether Trump is happy or sad about it.
I do just want to point out, if the Fox Disney merger doesn't go down, we don't get the X-Men Avengers crossover. So I just want to put that out.
But we'll get more movies made, and there'll be more
priorities.
movies.
Priorities, please.
We'll actually get a good Fantastic Four movie.
I
must never get a good Fantastic Four movie.
I suppose we could get Hugh Jackman to come out of retirement and go after Thanos.
I want him to dig his way out of his grave from Logan and just go walking off into the sunset. Yeah. That would be the ultimate, the surprise ending is Thanos snaps his fingers and everybody's like, and then the claws come through the side of his head.
It looks like AT&T has completed acquisition through Time Warner.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah,
people keep buying Time Warner. I remember when 20 years ago it was AOL.
Yeah. You know, and
why do people keep
I'm the only one here who might remember when AT&T was originally broken up into the baby bells, for fuck's sake.
Yeah,
and
that's
now,
right.
Now they're just building it right back together again. Except
got singular. And got,
yeah. Didn't they break it up to prevent just this sort of thing?
Exactly. And now you've got AT&T as Frankenstein's monster.
We tried to do that through like Microsoft in the late 90s too. And that didn't happen.
Well, that's what gets me about, because there's a lot of libertarians that are in favor of, whatever, laissez-faire capitalism. And I'm like, yeah, but you guys supposedly believe in the principle of non-aggression. And if a company pollutes, they're actually committing, by those same principles, they're committing violence against all of us.
Yes.
You think they'd want them to be held accountable, because that would, to me, seem to be the proper way. If you actually believe that you should not exhibit force unnecessarily against your neighbor, and that if you do, your neighbor has, or society collectively has the right to exhibit force back at you in retribution. So it seems to me that you would be totally pro-environmental laws, because every time you put that smoke out there, or you put the
But that's against capitalism. Negative externalities are pro-capitalism.
Yeah, the only problem with the non-aggression principle is it only, as far as they're concerned, it only applies to them when somebody's trying to aggress against them.
Yeah,
just like free speech and those free speech warriors, when you think about it. No, my speech is more important than your speech. You cannot criticize me for what I say.
And they also they have a blind spot where they're perfectly fine with private entities doing things that they insist government shouldn't be allowed to do.
Right.
If it's government doing that, then they're like, oh, it's a terrible imposition on liberty. But if it's a private entity doing the exact same thing with the exact same result, oh well,
And what direction are we heading in? Corporate government.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, especially, except with one exception to that, Steve, they're perfectly fine with the corporation discriminating against, racial minorities, ethnic minorities, LGBT people, all that. But if they stop some loudmouth, libelous, slanderous face from posting on Twitter, that is somehow, we need a new revolution, even though they're not a government entity.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wait, are you saying that the right wing are hypocrites?
What? Yes. Nobody said that.
Here's the thing: everybody is hypocritical at times, but not in equal measures, and not for as often either.
And not as shamelessly.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I mean, we're just out in the open. I know it doesn't make sense. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, and who is the epitome of this this practice? You will find them at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyway, after this is done, they're going to go to a protest at the Westlake Center in Seattle because I'm going to protest the Supreme Court nomination of Brett Kavanaugh and stuff like that. So there's a lot of reasons. I also went to a phone bank at Planned Parenthood to call Alaskan Planned Parenthood members to get them to talk to their senator, Senator Murkowski, to get her to show support of blocking the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh.
Yeah. I mean, that's
nice.
That's good.
And that's another thing too. I've been getting arguments with people on the left. Was I'm like, look, yes, we should protest and everything. Understand that it's probably not going to have any effect, but we should still do so anyway. But the thing is, they're like, why aren't the Democrats in the Senate blocking this guy? Math. Do some fucking math.
Oh shit.
Majority.
Yeah, work on some Republicans to show some backbone.
Yeah, get Murkowski and Collins on our side, and we got a chance.
Exactly.
Well, it's the thing, especially now, until somebody gets appointed to finish out McCain's term, the Republicans.
Yeah, that's already happened. The appointee's already been made.
Oh fuck. Okay.
And predictably, well, I mean, keep in mind, you got a Republican governor, you're going to have a Republican senator.
I didn't know what the rules were, because some states only nominate, and then you have to have a special election.
Yeah.
In Arizona, it is appointed by the governor.
Okay. So that's nothing. A lot of people don't know that, and then they wonder, because I was really hoping that I obviously we knew McCain was dying. I was hoping that he would last through January 1st, because then because I know he wasn't going to vote in favor of anything from Trump at this point. Yeah. So I was thinking, okay, they only got 50,
I'm not sure about that.
50 votes, and then basically all it would take would only have to flip one Republican to get a decent result. But now now matters are worse.
Yeah, we'll have to get two Republicans to do the decent thing,
and that's virtually impossible.
Just don't hold your breath. Well, we've been at this for an hour, so I'm going to call this to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining me, as always, here in the Hangout. Thanks to everybody for watching. I hope it was entertaining for you. Although, really, I mean, we're mostly just concerned with ourselves in here. We don't really care if it's entertaining for the people watching. It's that kind of unprofessional. But anyway, thank you for watching. If you've been watching, I do this once a month with my Patreon patrons. If this looks like fun, or if you like the other YouTube videos that I make and you want to help me out, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives and become a patron. And becoming a patron at any level opens you up to the possibility of doing this once a month. So,
and we didn't fill up this month either.
That's true. That's true. We had a couple of free slots. Yeah. The last couple months, I think we haven't like completely maxed out. So yeah, it's first come, first serve. It's whoever gets in first before the Hangout maxes out.
Watch fucking Legion.
Watch Legion. Read Conquest of Bread by Peter Kropotkin.
Well, yes, all of the Leto and thank you. Hi, Leto. We miss you.
Hi.
All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next month.
Thanks, Steve.